Good morning and welcome to the Crafty Canary for Thoughts on Thursday. Today will be a little bit different because all of our thoughts on Thursday so far have been about how I decided to stop coloring my hair, but I finished that series last week, so today we're going to go on to something a little different, and it will be my thoughts on a book that I listened to called Unoffendable. It's by Brant Hansen, Hansen, and it's called Unoffendable. And just this whole concept of being unoffendable, and basically it's about forgiveness. So it was really, really a great read or listen, really a good book, and I highly, highly recommend it. But just talking about the whole concept of not being offended in a world that today is just full of offense, full of people getting offended, full of people hurting you, hurting one another. How do we live like that? How do we live being unoffendable? So it's not an easy thing to do. It's a simple concept of forgiving, like Jesus said, 70 times 7, but it's not an easy thing to do, not an easy thing to live by. And as I listened to it, I was convicted. I was really excited about how life can be different when you live it without being offended by every little thing that people do, and without always getting upset and always being hurt and angered by things. In the way, excuse me, that life can be different when you do that. So it was an exciting concept, but as you read it and as you go about trying to do that, it becomes even harder because, of course, somebody cuts you off in traffic or something happens in a relationship that makes you angry. And so having to practice it and having to live it is a little bit harder than the actual idea of it. But in his book, he gives lots of examples, both in his life and in the lives of people that he knows, where horrible things even have happened and people have forgiven, people have chosen to move on and to live differently. And in today's culture, and especially as we enter into a time of political turmoil, as we enter into a time of election here in the United States, it is so easy to be offended and to even dislike or even hate the people who have differing opinions and differing views than we do. But I want to challenge myself and challenge my viewers to look at things differently, to look at life more in a way of expecting to be offended. I can't expect everyone to agree with me. As a matter of fact, I should expect that almost everyone will have a different opinion than I do on something. We are never going to please everyone. We are never going to have the same opinions, even as the closest people to us in our lives and the people we think agree with us on most everything. There will be things that we disagree on. There will be things that they do to offend us, that they do that disagrees with us. To go through life expecting that and not necessarily being surprised by it, and also and especially not being offended by it. So loving people who might have a different political view than we do, loving people that might have a different moral or religious view than we do. And if we are Christians and we are trying to live like Jesus, think about the way Jesus lived. Now, he did not promote immorality. He did not promote sin. As a matter of fact, he taught completely the opposite. He taught that we are to put away sin from ourselves, that we are not to live in sin. But yet, who were a lot of the people that he hung around? He hung around with prostitutes and tax collectors who in the Jewish day, in the Jewish culture and time of that day, would have been considered the biggest traitors, the biggest sinners. They were betraying their people, betraying their God by collecting taxes for the Roman government. So he was around all kind of people who did not hold the same values that he did, that did not obey the same laws of God that he did, but yet he loved them. He forgave them. He let them into his life in order to show them the forgiveness and to show them the love that he had and that he has for all of us. So if we are trying to live like Christ, if we're trying to follow Jesus, that is the way we need to live. And as American believers, we have somehow instead turned ourselves into kind of a isolationist culture, a separate culture where we are not involved with people who do anything sinful, which is silly because all of us are doing things sinful all the time. They may just not be the same types of sins. And so rather than separating ourselves from the culture, and of course we don't need to engage in the culture and do the same things that the culture is doing, but we need to engage with the people of our culture. We need to not have this self-righteous attitude that says, I can never be around someone who has a differing political opinion than I do, who has a different moral value than I do, who does something that I would never do. That's not the way we share the love of Christ. That is not the way we show that Christ is a forgiving and loving God. So I want to challenge myself, and I know as I record this and as I think this and as I try to go about doing this, something's going to be difficult today. Someone's going to do something to offend me, and I'm going to have to put it into practice, and I probably will fail. I'll probably get upset, get mad, but I want to have it on the forefront of my mind that I want to be as unoffendable as possible. If someone writes a negative comments on one of my YouTube videos, not to take it so to heart and to shoot back a response that's also not very kind, but to say, that's human nature. We're like that. Take into account what maybe I need to change, but also if it's just out of meanness, just to let it go and to try not to be offended. And one other thing that he said that I want to point out was to look for the glorious exceptions. So when people are, instead of cutting you off in traffic, when someone lets you in, when someone is kind, when someone sees that your hands are full and they open the door for you, even just those little exceptions of people doing things that are not rude, of people doing things that are not offending you, that are not, and people not getting offended by something that you might do. So look for those glorious exceptions. I even set a reminder on my phone that once a day it goes off that I look at it and it says, look for the glorious exceptions, so that I'm aware, so that I'm looking for where people are being kind, where people are being unoffendable, where people are showing me the love of Christ and showing me kindness. So I just want to leave you with that today. I hope that encourages you. I hope it inspires you and makes you think. Go ahead and let me know what you think about that. If you've read the book and what you thought about it, I would love to hear your thoughts on it too. So I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Please subscribe and like this video if you like it, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.